We all remember when EA just started frivolously buying out IPs, buying out studios, you know, putting some hefty requirements on said studios with their IPs. Like for Dead Space, they wanted like comics, they wanted the game itself from Visceral Studios, but they also wanted webtoons. They wanted like I think there's some movie on Netflix TV show, and then they have all of that. Then they end up just shelving the company and firing everyone. I remember when this happened. There's just a swath of this happening because EA they published some good games, but then they went into this like craze of buying studios or having them release products, then shelving the studios, and everyone universally agreed EA was a shit company for this, right? And I feel like this did irreparable damage to their brand, as a publisher. I mean, I think EA has they they released some games. Like I think they had an official studio, quote unquote. But now it seems like EA. And at first when I seen this, it was like 500 and something million. Now it's jumped to 55 billion deal with Electronic Arts in Saudi Arabia. And I'm wondering, what was the last good game that EA released? Like, I guess, Mass Effect 3. I mean, there's inconsistencies throughout the game, but a lot of people agree that the ending is what sort of made it bad. But you enjoyed the game as it went, even though it rehashed a lot of things from the previous game that you thought you concluded, but not now they're back. But it was still a functioning game. You still had interesting characters. It was interesting role play. Edie is top waifu. I don't care what anyone says. But now it seems Saudi Arabia has plucked EA. Saudi Arabia has been buying up a lot of entertainment companies. Like they bought up like esports teams, regular sports teams. Now they're buying up game companies, and this is smart because uh, Saudi Arabia, their whole thing is oil. That's their money printing hack. But a lot of companies are at one point going green, but are also now reinvesting into their own sectors. And when that happens, Saudi Arabia is going to probably lose a lot of money. So I think they're making a good move as far as a country. I mean, I don't care the culture. I don't care any of the ideology. It's just how will this affect the games and the products being released from EA? Who the fuck knows? I mean, there's games from other cultures like China. Like I wouldn't want to live in China. I think it's a backward system, but they release good games. They don't try to fuck with my entertainment. They keep their shit within their borders, whereas the UK and the EU and other countries try to reach over. Like Australia tries to reach over to me in fucking America and regulate the things I do and the games I play. And I'm like, yeah, I don't respect that. I don't respect countries and companies trying to expand their influence and activist groups trying to expand their interest groups. I think this is going to be the first thing to fall when Saudi Arabia buys Electronic Arts. They're going to actually release games that people want, not entirely that they want to play, but without the previous garbage of gaming that entered the landscape. The Dragon Age Veilguard levels of storytelling and gameplay. You know, the type of games that aren't really for gamers, you know, they're not for you. You know, 'cause you gotta understand, yeah, this product still has to fucking sell. You know, none of the uglification of female characters, that's not gonna fly. You know, but it's odd that, and this is the point I made, there's not a single person in Electronic Arts that was like, no, we want to push American values and American soft power through using EA as a vector. No, they seem to want to push these small fringe ideologies that not even America cares about, Americans care about, but they're trying to shove it in your games. And then in comes Saudi Arabia, and they're like, Inshallah, brother. Like, they did a full 180. They went from shoving 50-year-old wine moms into games that aren't attracted at all into their games to now putting on the towel on your head and being like, Inshallah. In just simply because they shoved money in their face. Now I'm looking at IPs EA has that, I mean, Spore was alright, but the Mass Effect and BioWare, like, that should be a multi-billion-dollar company by now. If it sold the same games it sold in the past and went in that trajectory, it should be hundreds of billions of dollars, but because for some reason they've decided to do everything in their power to shit on the consumer. I mean, at first it was 500 million. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, VTubers make that in a charity stream. Well, well, not really, but they probably make more than that on paper. Now in practice, Twitch takes a cut. Their government takes a cut, in taxes. Their agency takes a cut. So you'll be surprised how much money they actually get at the end of all that. But 55 billion deal, like, again, of all the IPs that if they were as good as they were in the early 2000s, would be worth several hundreds of billions, but instead they decide to shit on the consumer. It's like when Tencent threatened to buy Ubisoft, and it seemed like a threat, but people actually wanted that because it's like, please get Assassin's Creed out the hands of these fucking idiots in Ubisoft. They're ruining the IPs. Like when Tencent was like, we'll buy this, they actually spiked in people buying shares, and then it went back into the trash can. This is probably what's going to happen with EA. I keep scratching my nose is itchy for some reason. Why does this happen? And this is before I'm even looking at anything in the article, right? I think, will any new IPs happen? Like, they're already wanting an Assassin's Creed in their backyard in the good old Middle East, and I'm wondering what you know, the type of people that like to be offended on others' behalf. You know, they scream cultural appropriation, even in games where nobody who plays the game cares because it's a good game, but they don't play games. They only care for ideology. I'm wondering if they have anything to say about this, right? Probably not. They're probably also getting paid off. Like, man, I wish the Sods would pay me off. Like, I'm not above this. Who the fuck made you think I was above this? Like, 55 billion, bro. You know how many fucking games I'd make with that? God damn. Maybe I should actually skim the article. Public Investment Fund, Jared Kushner, as in Trump's son-in-law, affinity partner in private equity for Silver Lake. Now fans want to know what that means to their games, and developers likely do as well. I mean, let's think about it, right? It'll undo all the stupid changes that EA made. Like the gamers will probably be fine with this because again, no one cares. You know, the socio-political aspect of Saudi Arabia. I, as a gamer, just care if the games I buy is worth my money. You know, I work for a living. You know, I set time aside to play my games and make my YouTube videos, and now I'm making a game, so that time is becoming less and less. Will the money I put into buying this game be worth it? Yes or no? That's really all I care about. Like we can get into arguments about, you know, human rights, for lack of a better term, arguments of Saudi Arabia. But that's not really what I care about when I'm purchasing a product, right? They announced a conjunction with a statement from EA CEO Andrew Wilson, who is not going anywhere and will still lead the company. For now. Yeah, for now. I guess a lot of studios do this thing, and Steve Jobs was right. At first, when you want to make a company and you actually want to add something, you add a product, but then you get too big. When you get too big, the salespeople come in and they start running the company, right? You have this with game studios. Like you have the game studios that don't actually understand what the consumer wants because they look at charts. They look at spreadsheets and Microsoft Excel spreadsheets, and they're like, okay, so this is popular. This is clearly what the people want. Where in the early 2000s, the coders, the programmers, the artists were the same people steering the ship. So that they knew what the gamers want because they were gamers too. Right? They knew what the consumer want because they play the games and understand the art. And you can even look at old art from Blizzard in the World of Warcraft because which is a dying art to be frank. I mean, the person that made the Night Elves, like some of the art was drawn by multiple people, who shared an artistic talent, and this takes years to cultivate. Whereas now AI's being thrown into companies, and again, if you're a nobody and you use AI, you're going to get yelled at. But if you're a multi-billion-dollar company using AI, I guess that's fine. So, what will this mean? Like, will Saudi Arabia use AI in their games? I don't know. I mean, probably. But I do just. If we're talking artistically, I mean, a lot of games look good, but it's just the stories are bland, and you find out the characters you're playing are bland, and you find out the devs are bad because they have an ideology that they want to impose, and then you realize the whole company's bad because it's purposefully lowering its shares and shitting on the consumer specifically for a buyout to happen, just living off the dividends. And it's like, well, can some American company actually make a good game? So, or is it just indie and double A we gotta rely on? Like, you see this with so many companies, and I'm wondering if any other companies are going to get bought up by, either, third party, government owned firms, for lack of a better term, like Tencent, or come by entire nations like Saudi Arabia. Who knows? All I know is the Prince of Saudi Arabia who has an anime girl on his profile pic. And I think there's been certain interviews with him, like, he is not dumb. He understands the market. He understands the positions he's in. And, I mean, I wish, Andrew Wilson was well, I guess he's getting 55 billion, probably a third of that in his pocket. For him, this is the best time of his life. Jared Kushner said Electronic Arts is an extraordinary company with a world-class management team and a bold vision of the future. I admire their ability to create iconic, lasting experiences, and as someone who grew up playing games and now enjoy them with his kids, I couldn't be more excited about what's ahead. I mean, I guess if you're like EA and you hit rock bottom, I guess you could really only go up from this. But again, I'm wondering, where is the American game company that wants to push American soft power? Oh, I'm sorry, they're taken over by middle-aged white women. They're in HR that don't actually care for these things. They have a thorn on their side, and they want to treat the consumer like the baby daddy. I'm so fucking stupid. What was I thinking? Right? Now, will this happen with EA? No. So, there's a prospect of you actually getting good products. Not the shit we had in the past. I mean, for what I heard, the Battlefield 6 story is a sleeper, but people are enjoying the game. Am I going to give them credit for doing the bare fucking minimum? No. It's like, I watch this be a trend where at one point they'll shit on the consumer, then the next point they give you what they want and expect people to just be happy and shut up by the fact that they didn't just shit on the consumer earlier. Maybe. The initial reaction amongst gaming communities have been largely skeptical, with fans not exactly believing in EA, owned by Saudi Arabia and Jared Kushner, and still run by Andrew Wilson, is going to make things better for its games. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. If it makes the product just slightly what the consumer wants, that's a good thing, in my opinion. One immediate aspect to note, as Bloomberg points out, is that the deal is being financed with $20 billion worth of debt. So the result may not be a flood of new cash injected for mass hiring and big games. I mean, EA had many companies in their portfolio, but they shelved them. They've got rid of them, sucked the dividends from the companies, and again, this created this culture in gaming where you just treat it like any other job instead of just treating it like, a legitimate artist form of art. And I really thought about this with hiring devs for my game. Like, do I want to hire devs from a failing game industry, even if they were good 15 years ago? I mean, I ever got shoved out, or they just treated it like any other job? And above then, they want to fucking milk you of your money. Like, I'm just one fucking dude. What do you want from me? There are a number of spinning plates at EA already. BioWare recently released the drastic underperforming Dragon Age Veilguard. Yeah, things like these is why people are glad. Games like this is why there are people who has spite driven up in them, and they're like, yeah, fuck it. You can't get any worse than this. Like, this wasn't even a game, in my opinion. His third miss in a row, and has everything riding on a new Mass Effect game, which I also think is going to be bad. Because a lot of games operate off like a 4-year cycle. So you might get a lot of games still from the previous culture, or at least they're trying to root it out as much as they can. And again, the true Mass Effect trilogy was fine. No one asked for Andromeda. And I don't think this new Mass Effect game is going to really save them, in my opinion. If that doesn't hit, the cuts are looming. That's incredibly dangerous for them. Apex Legends is a big, ongoing shooter for EA. I want Titanfall 3 to come back, but that's never going to happen because of this stupid fucking game right here. I hate Apex Legends because of it. EA, though, is down to about a third of its peak players for some years back, though still a generally solid performer. I mean, there's esports and Apex. You know, a lot of people still play the game. I mean, it captured an audience. To be fair, as much as I hate this stupid fucking game, it did capture a bit of an audience. So, but so did Titanfall. You know, Respawn still is that one company they can fall back on, but they're really trying to squeeze BioWare, a company that completely forgot its roots. But Respawn, to their credit, still can make good games. But we'll have to see. Right. I think you can only really go up for EA, and I guess for BioWare. But I'm still wondering, why is there no one that's wanting to push American values in games? Push, what games used to be in the early 2000s, back when gaming was unpopular but the games were actually good. Even bad, the games people universally consider bad are comparably objectively better into what we have. Dragon Age Veilguard, right? I'd say a good majority of bad games that people thought were bad, just a little bit a lot better than Dragon Age. What am I kidding? But anyway, inshallah, give me some of that money. Peace out.